and there was all this talk over the weekend about Florida State's going AAU to join the Big Ten. Florida State's efforts to become AAU accredited is not new. It is something that is significant. It is believed, although not on paper, not ever spoken, that if you'd like to become a member of the Big Ten, you must be AAU accredited. And essentially what AAU means, and for those of you who don't know, it is the American Association of Universities, or the Association of American Universities. And basically what the AAU says is that you must empower your students with knowledge. You must give them knowledge. You must give them the resources, both financially and physically, to use science and innovation to take that knowledge and develop it. That's essentially what the AAU is about. That is research money, but behind all of that, there are significant dollars that universities have to spend in order to facilitate that, and what a lot of people describe as the weaponization of knowledge, right? There are more faculty expansion. You have to have new departments added that are specifically designed to, A, get you more research money from the federal government. And really the only way at the institution level in education in this country to get the highest amount of federal money is to be AAU accredited. And it takes a lot of resources. Human beings, you basically are committing to building new buildings on your campus. You are committed to expanding, and I mean exponentially and significantly expanding your faculty. And this is where the rubber meets the road at Florida State. They have tried in the past, for going back to really 5 years at this point, they have tried to do what needed to be done, if you will, to get AAU status. They have not been able to do that. In 2023, they were passed up, which shocked a lot of people, but it didn't really, when you do the research on it, surprise anyone, because Florida State had attrition in faculty, and a lot of it. They had retirements, they had resignations, they had a board of trustees that had 2 spots that were not filled. So they did not have the infrastructure in place, financially or in humanity, to become AAU certified. So everybody that's saying, hey, Florida State, they're trying to get into the AAU just right now today, that's complete bullshit. They've been trying to become AAU certified since before COVID. And now they're trying again. And I don't necessarily believe it is to satiate the Big Ten. It is to make more money and become, essentially in line with their brethren in the state of Florida, because now they are the only public university in the state of Florida that's not AAU certified. And amongst them, now we know Florida, who's been a longtime member of the AAU. So you have all this stuff. Don't read too much into this, because I don't believe that even if they become AAU certified, that Florida State's a fit in the Big Ten. And Jake, I think that's the biggest question, whether or not Florida State fits in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I think this conversation around the Big Ten, the Big Ten's willingness to be a participant in the state of Florida, I think is a really interesting conversation, because obviously from Florida State's perspective, like the AAU side of the conversation, is sort of this box, I feel like, in a checklist of things when schools are evaluated for their candidacy for expansion. Like, hey, are you AAU accredited? Do you have a great football program? Do you have a great basketball program? Like, there's all these things we look for when conferences are trying to add schools. And I think, the Big Ten's, willingness to add Florida State, I definitely think is a huge question mark for the landscape, because, Florida has been the state of Florida itself has been sort of this state where, more conferences are getting involved in it through expansion. Obviously, the Big Ten picking up UCF was a big story at the time. Like, hey, or the Big 12 picking up UCF was a big story at the time, where Brett Yormark, adds them along with those other schools, and everyone's like, oh man, hey, the Big 12 is really getting into the state of Florida. What about the big boys now? What about the Big 10? And I'm not sure that the Big Ten is more wanting to have a school in the state of Florida than they would be to actually add Florida State, because it goes back to this conversation of Florida State isn't necessarily a super attractive or desirable partner at this current time. So this narrative that, well, they're trying to get AAU certified so that their attractiveness, or so that they're more attractive to the Big Ten, is just that. It's just a narrative. That it's not like, the Big Ten said to Florida State, hey, if you're AAU certified, hey, you've got, you're getting into the conference in 3 years or 5 years. That's not what's happening here. And I feel like that's what's been characterized, that the Big Ten somehow has some under the table deal with Florida State. And that's not the case at all. I think this is just yet another storyline where people want so desperately for Florida State to get out of the ACC that they're willing to go out and say, yeah, this accreditation is the only thing, keeping them out or stopping them, or it would really help them. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think this is still a situation where nobody's going to do anything until the court situation is worked out and until time passes where Florida State can correct their image.
Yeah, and I think you look at, I want to correct one thing I may have misspoke. I saw in the comment section. In the state of Florida, Florida State was passed over for AAU accreditation in 2023 by USF, got the nod. So it's Florida, Miami, the University of Miami, Florida, not Ohio, and USF are all AAU members. Florida State is now aiming at that, and they were passed up in 2023 because of their faculty shortfalls. So I just hope people understand this is going on a decade of effort for Florida State to join the AAU. It's not like they said, how are we going to get into the Big Ten? That's not what it is. But I also want people to understand something. And we took a lot of shit on this show for talking about research in AAU during the Pac-12 meltdown. It matters. I hope people understand it matters. And when you look at some of the best institutions, certainly I think in the Big 12, for instance, Utah and Arizona are both AAU certified, as is ASU, but I said good institution, so you can't really put them in the conversation. But you look at how important that was to bolstering the Big 12. I don't think there's any doubt. I don't think there's any doubt that when you look at the four corner schools and their attractiveness, certainly being AAU accredited, which they are in Salt Lake, Boulder, Arizona, both Arizona schools. I mean, that's a big feather in your cap. And I just think it's so difficult to get there. It is so much money. It is so much humanity. And we're talking about a very specific job that comes with that AAU certification. And that is taking knowledge and weaponizing it on your campus so that your students can go out and innovate in the world. Think about the gravity of that. We're not talking about the Big Ten. We're talking about becoming a real difference-making university, which is why it's so important. So, again, I just encourage you, when you see headlines like this coming out of Nowheresville, which is what this is, don't tie Florida State going through the process of AAU certification again by some odds. I was reading I think it's the Tallahassee Democrat or whatever the fucking paper down there is, saying that this is the fourth cycle of Florida State trying to get AAU certified. And it's not easy. So the idea that they'd be like, yeah, we need to get into the Big Ten. Let's do it.
I mean, people are treating it like you could just pay a fee, like an entry fee, and all of a sudden you get a gold sticker that says you're certified. And it's like, dude, that's not what it is. And I remember, it's funny you bring up the Pac-12 thing, because I remember talking about all these different situations. And even in the Big 12, we've talked about it, where it's like, oh, well, Stanford and Cal, they would be really valuable as educational partners because they're so strong on that side. But is that side of the conversation worth it if their athletics department is struggling in the way it's struggling right now? Because that's the conversation, right? For Florida State, it's the exact opposite. Really strong in athletics, like
Right.
obviously making revenue, but you don't have this certification. You're not on that level on that side of the university. So I just think that it depends what perspective you're having the conversation from. If you're a leader of a conference, if you're a commissioner, if you're a president at an institution going into these meetings, you want to be as strong as you can possibly be on both sides of the ball, if you will. You want to be really strong in education and you want to be really strong in athletics. And if you're a school that's looking at trying to get to a different conference, yeah, this kind of accreditation is valuable. But the characterization that they're only now doing it to try to get into the Big Ten, I actually think is kind of disrespectful to Florida State. Number one, but then number two, it's also disrespectful to the Big Ten because you're sitting here saying, well, it's not on paper, but the Big Ten only takes schools with that accreditation, which I just think isn't fair to the conversation.
And I think you look at the names that are on this list, whether it's Brandeis or MIT or all of the UC schools. Hell, Arizona State only became AAU in 2023. Like, you look at the universities that comprise the membership. Man, it is heavyweights. It is meaningful. And again, I know people are going to mock me because I say that research matters, and it's why Utah, and I continue to say this, Utah is one of the most underrated institutions in the country because it is stocked with administrators and policymakers who understand that football just doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And I know that's hard to digest. I know that people lost their shit about it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. When we're talking about Florida State getting AAU accreditation, it has zero to do with athletics. I mean, it just does not matter. And I think when you look at the Big Ten, oh, well, listen, Morty, if it doesn't matter, why is the Big Ten so hard over it? Well, the reason that the Big Ten is, in my opinion, the reason that the Big Ten is so adamant about only having AAU membership is because it is a revenue generating operation. And when you look at the research money that the Pac-12 was making, again, another thing that we told you exclusively on this show is that you look at why did Utah specifically, why did Utah wait so long to leave the Pac-12? Well, because they were going to the Big 12, and the Big 12 is notoriously short of AAU institutions, which means it's going to cost them money.
Well, and it's interesting, like with the Pac-12, you remember all the jokes that people made about like, hey, like their education first, athletics second, like the arrogance in the educational side of all these schools. Like, I think it's a really difficult thing because you, of course, want to be part of this very select and exclusive group. It absolutely adds value. But
what did it take Utah? I think it took Utah almost a decade.
Yeah. Like, this isn't a short process.
When did they? I think they became AAU accredited in 2019, and I think it took them almost a decade to meet the bar, because you and I don't mean to be redundant, but you have to have every corner of your universe on board at your university because it's really expensive. And I happen to be fortunate enough to live in the great state of Utah. You look at the facilities that were built on that campus, you look at the influx of educational talent and the minds that were brought into the University of Utah. You look at the way that the president, Taylor Randall, you just look at the way the management structure there took their university and overhauled it just to become AAU certified. I mean, you're moving mountains, especially when Utah's not the largest university in the country. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, November 6, 2019 was when they got their invite to join.
So less than what is that? Less than 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a process, but it makes you so much money. And the other thing that I think people forget, and I really, again, I know the Neanderthal hyena just doesn't give a shit about this, but you better. Do you know what AAU certification also allows you to do? Well, you can attract a better cut of, educator. You get a better president. You get better boards of trustees. You get better donor money. You get better professors. You get the higher cut of student. That's what you get. That's what comes along with it. You get Nobel Peace Prizes. You get the elites, which you are not going to get. Do you understand how many professors will not go and work for a university that's not AAU accredited? Just won't. Like that to me, again, I know we think sports is the only thing that matters. It does not matter. Research money is far more important than concession stand money, with all due respect, Doak State James.
Like, you guys understand it, seriously, but you do understand, like, research money, you're not talking about like, wow, they're getting $40 million a year from the TV company, man. You're talking about billions of dollars, bro, coming into your university, coming into that campus. And that's the thing that I think if you were to ask me, like, hey, what's the first grader terminology around all this? How do we simplify it? Well, the way you simplify it is you need to get this accreditation to be in an elite group of schools. 71, I believe, is the number right now. 71 schools or so that all are at the top tier of educational standard. And getting to that level in combination with a well-run athletic department makes you incredibly attractive when expansion comes and goes in the football landscape or the athletics landscape. But it is not something where it's like, well, we better get accredited, because if we get accredited, we're instantly joining the Big Ten.
And the other thing I think Florida State fan spent zero time looking at over the weekend, do you guys understand AAU is not new? This is not something that Florida State's inventing. And this is where I think Florida State fan gets itself into the not so well respected realm of fandom. AAU, we're talking about 1900. I believe their membership goes back to 1900 with Yale, Cornell, Penn. Like, guys, we're not talking about
founded in 1900.
Come on. We're not talking about something that just started like last week because Florida State said we need to do this.
Yeah, this isn't book club, bro.
Yeah, which I always find quite interesting.
Yeah.
But I think this is an absolute nothing burger. And I just continue to tell you as far as I do weekly check-ins with people on this situation with Florida State. I don't believe that Florida State has a home in the Big Ten. I do not. I've heard repeatedly. I do think that Greg Sankey is posturing. I think that if I had to guess at this point, we're all just waiting on the court process to play out. And I think nothing happens I don't believe they ever leave the ACC, because I think as far as football goes, I don't believe that they'll be an ACC member, because I think we're going to a Super League. And I think they would be foolish to leave the ACC for their other sports. Did you guys see the expansion of scholarships now per sport? I mean, you have no reason now to go chasing. What are you going to do? Go chase more stick and ball money? You're already in a power basketball league in the ACC. Are you thinking going to the Big Ten is going to help you in college basketball? It's not. It's not. Florida State, in my opinion, is not going to leave the ACC. And I think as far as football goes, I think we're going to a Super League in 3 seasons from now. Not this coming season, not the next season. I think that 3rd season from now, college football will be remarkably different.
Well, and that's why it's so fascinating that Florida State has this just willingness, seemingly, to spend all this money on all the court proceedings and the process, and continuing to, frankly, hunt a result that just isn't going to get them much. That's what I struggle with Florida State. Not just the Florida State fan who wants to say, different stuff every single day, seemingly, but the officials at Florida State, the folks who actually make the decision. You can't tell me they haven't heard the smoke and the conversations around the Super League coming and that, frankly, is on the horizon. Like, you can't tell me they haven't heard that stuff. So the idea that you would continue to spend all this money trying to, I guess, be right is crazy to me. I don't know why you wouldn't just let it, just slowly and quietly, just let it die off. Like, you don't even have to put out a statement. Just let the court stuff die off. Be quiet. Let it cool off.
Yeah.
Go out and win some football games. Get into the playoff, and then see what the Super League brings. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes too much sense. And one of the things I thought was so interesting, and I want to say it was Ross Dellinger, or it might have been Stuart Mandel. Forgive me for getting it wrong. When they tweeted this list of the roster expansions by scholarship, and then the revenue generation attached to that. Do you guys understand that? And you're going to say I'm biased. I'm not. Go look it up. Do you understand that golf is becoming a premier revenue generating sport in college with 9 athletes? So per athlete, golf is one of the top revenue generators. Have you guys seen the amount of money universities are spending on golf facilities? It is crazy how much money these universities spend on sports. And so, to wrap this whole thing up before we get to your comments, I look at Florida State trying to become AAU certified or accredited or get membership into the AAU. I'm telling you, it has absolutely nothing to do with the Big Ten. Nothing. Does it make them eligible potentially, or does it open up a communication? Sure. Hey, I don't know if you guys saw, we got AAU certified. Okay, great. Congratulations. Good luck in the football season. I don't believe that they would move to the Big Ten. There's just the Big Ten, for everything the Big Ten is not, they know who they are. Does the state of Florida scream Big Ten country to you? Does the southeast of this country scream Big Ten to you?
Not particularly.
Does the northeast of this country, who do you think you are, Rutgers? Does the northeast of this country scream Big Ten? A little bit more, if only in recruiting, and if only because you have, obviously Pedo State, and Rutgers. But this is a conference that is rooted in the heartland. This is a conference that is rooted in the Midwest. And I think when you look at what it means to expand south and east, that is not who the Big Ten has ever been. And they've had opportunities. I just don't see them doing that. The only way I think that they get into the southeast is if North Carolina and Duke ask to join or agree to join. That's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah.
But I think you have to, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take these things with a grain of salt, man. Like, I think that people want to just go and be like, yeah, hey, man, like Florida State's to the Big Ten. Like, the Big Ten needs a presence in Florida, the state of Florida. Like, sure. But again, the same logic around the Super League for Florida State is the same logic I'll use for the Big Ten. Why would the Big Ten go out of their way to add someone who currently is viewed as a pain in the ass as an institution and an athletic program? Why would you go out of your way to add them right now when you're probably going to, have a bunch of additions through this whole Super League setup and this, as Witt called it, this NFL minor league system that's going to get created? The Big Ten is going to be fine. Honestly, the Big Ten's going to be fine. And I think the only question that we as college football fans are going to have is who's going to have more spots in the college football playoff. Is that going to be the SEC or is that going to be the Big Ten? Because clearly they're going to get the lion's share.
Yeah, I think it is. I just think it's very interesting to me that we're in a place where people are so thirsty And you just apply common sense. That's what I'm asking you, please.
Yeah.
Apply common sense. All right. UW fan Jim, how does 102 scholarships work with Title IX? This is another thing that I think we have to get right. I have talked to a number of people about this. Just because you have 102 scholarships in football does not mean you have to have 102 scholarships for women to take advantage of. You have to allow equal access to financial aid for women and men. It does not mean you cannot give 102 scholarships. And I'll go back to the roster expansion. If you are going to expand women's or men's gymnastics, you have to expand women's gymnastics. Baseball, softball, golf. Like you have to provide equal opportunities. That does not mean that when you don't have women playing a dedicated women's program for football, then we have to create one. You don't. Do you have to allow a woman if she wants to try out for your football team? Yes, you do. You have to allow her to do that. You can't deny her based on gender. You cannot limit female athletics financial opportunities in any way, shape, or form. You have to provide equal financial opportunity at the scholarship level for men and women. That's what Title IX is about, equal opportunity. And you cannot deny people based on their gender. And when you look at the roster expansion, you're getting equality in that now the swim scholarships are exactly equal. The golf scholarships are exactly equal. Gymnastics scholarships are equal. If you look across the board, it's equal. That's what Title IX is about. Title IX is not about, with all due respect, it has nothing to do with 102 scholarships in football. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
There's this big misconception that Title IX, I think you have to understand what Title IX is. Equality in opportunity. And at the NCAA level with scholarships, it is providing the exact same financial opportunity for men and women.
Well, and I think that this thing with the 102 scholarships in football and like how Title IX affects that, like I think what nobody points out is that I don't know that most women would want to play the sport of football. The brutality of football has pushed so many male athletes away from the sport and into golf or into, basketball or like whatever their alternate option would be. Like there are so many options for women in collegiate athletics, like more than there's ever been. So the idea that people are like, oh, well, hey, you bumped up football by, whatever it was, 25 scholarships or whatever. Like, hey, what are we doing in these other sports? Like there's a clear increase here. There's a clear increase of opportunity. And by the way, all these scholarships, like what the other thing people don't talk about is just because you make a team doesn't mean that you're on scholarship. So increasing the number of scholarships lets these different athletic programs inside your department help more kids. And that ultimately, I think, is the whole point. That's the whole genesis of athletics at a college. The whole genesis of it was, hey, we're offering our badminton team, come in here and get a half scholarship, get a 3/4 scholarship, or even a full. Like, so people, I feel like, just forget the whole point of scholarships in college athletics.
Yeah, I think 9 out of 10 people have no clue what Title IX or how the award of scholarships work. I just think people think it's, I just think people don't know how it works. I think people don't understand what AAU accreditation is about. I think we hear these big buzz terms and we just make assumptions without doing the homework to get it right. That to me that's what it feels like to me anyway.
Yeah.
But hey, Mike Smith says girls don't go away mad, girls just go away. Okay, listening to some old rock music. That's fine, which, it is what it is. Kane Uren, good morning to you. Florida State is the spoiled child. I just continue to go with the theory that Florida State's not well respected. And I think the actions that they have taken and the destabilizing of the ACC, I think it continues to be an anvil around their neck. I just think they're sinking with it. And it's going to make it very difficult for them to plead their case that hey, we're a strong partner in your conference until we're not happy, and then we're not.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you hear Greg Sankey last week at SEC Media Days taking a big shot at him. Or, I mean, you have one of the most powerful men, arguably the most powerful human in all of college athletics, taking a not so thinly veiled shot at Florida State, because nobody's scared of Florida State. Nobody respects Florida State because they haven't earned that respect. And I think it's a huge problem. I truly think it is a big problem. Welcome to the nightmare. Good morning, guys. Everyone hit the like button. Yes, please. That always helps. Oh, gee, Gary, Utah has a better chance of being in the Big Ten before Florida State. I think there was a lot made of that. I just go back to Kyle Whittingham's, the comments that Whit made about the Super 2. I don't think Kyle Whittingham is edging to get into the Big Ten.
So much change already, and there's more on the horizon. I can tell you that. We're not done. I think it's ultimately going to get to 2 super conferences and their own playoff system, and probably break away from the NC2A. Have a commissioner and all. An NFL minor league model, I think, is where we're heading in that regard.
There you go. I think we are looking at what I told you, I guess 6 months ago now. I think you're looking at an NFL minor league system. I think you're looking at a college football championship on a Saturday and the Super Bowl on Sunday. I think you're looking at an NFL playoff system. I think that's what you're going to get in college football. I think you're going to get 2 conferences. I think you're going to have divisions in those conferences. And I think you're going to have a very clear-cut, hey, did you win enough games? Did you lose enough games? Here are the tiebreakers. Here are the wild cards. You're in or you're out. There's no controversy about whether or not the Chicago Bears are playoff eligible. There's no controversy about whether or not the Kansas City Chiefs are eligible for the college football playoff.
Right.
That all goes away, right? If you are Florida State, either won enough games or you didn't. It has nothing to do with being undefeated and your quarterback's hurt. Those days are coming to an end. And I think it is going to be as clear as a bell who's in and who's out. Kay Nurin, by the way, 365 Sports with the credit on Witt's interview there. Kay Nurin, BYU has been AAU for years. I don't believe that BYU is AAU. I could be wrong. I happen to have their membership list. And I do not, because, I'm almost certain, because you would have to allow an understanding of your finances, because there is a financial ability component to joining the Association of American Universities. So, but I could be wrong, but I don't see them on the membership list. So
yeah,
I could be wrong, but I don't believe
based on what I can see, they're not a full member. They have accreditation reaffirmed, but I don't fully understand what that quite means. They don't have full access. That much is very clear.
BYU is a private university.
Yeah.
Run by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
Is never going to allow anybody to come in and examine their financial situation. And if you're not going to do that, you're not going to get access to the AAU. Period.
Yeah.
So, and if they are I can't remember what AAU calls, and I think it might be on their website, but I can't remember what the AAU calls their satellite. They have a group of universities that do not qualify to be full members, but they are partner members. I can't remember what they refer to them as, but BYU is certainly not a full member. Mike Smith, West Virginia used to be state ABC certified.
I mean,
the alphabet is tough in Morgantown. Washington State and Oregon State not ASU. ASU is absolutely in the AAU. So what did I miss there? I could be wrong. If I misspoke, please. I'm sure you will. I don't have to ask you.
Yeah, I don't think you did.
It took Utah some time to get AAU certified. It did. It's a process. And again, I hope people understand it's not easy to get AAU certification. It is, you have to, again, just the financial obligation, the financial weight that it takes to hire the staff and build the infrastructure and the support. Because again, what is it? AAU is 100% about taking knowledge, growing knowledge in your amongst your students, who can then take that knowledge and develop it in your programs and on your campus for the purpose of research and development. It's a huge science component, and it is not cheap. AAU, go Dogs. UW fan Jim, hello. Let's see who else this morning. Look at all of you. OG Gary, what the hell are you even talking about, Kaner? And BYU is not AAU accredited. Go check the list of AAU schools on their website. BYU is not Penn State. Jeez. Take it easy.
Yeah, hating a little bit there, Gary.
Okay, so Oak State James's first comment.
Okay, all right. Does it include an upper deck reference?
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say no.
Okay.
If the Big Ten really wants the New York City market, and I am not sure where you're getting that, they need Syracuse, not Rutgers. The Orange has always had a ton of fans in New York and has for a long time. I don't think Syracuse is who they are.
Okay, number one, why would they want the New York market? And number two, Rutgers is fine. It works for them. They don't ask you for much. They're a good educational institution, and we're fine.
And they already have the largest TV contract in all of college athletics.
Yeah, I think we're good.
OG Gary, good news is we have college football back. Yeah, there is, what are we, 1 month? I guess a month away from kickoff. And the NFL preseason gets underway this week, which is always great. So we're approaching the Bears winning a Super Bowl. Thanks for the clarification. I was not sure on Title IX specifics. SMU is not AAU. No, they're SMU is not ASU. They're Dallas.
Tarrant County.
It says it right across. No, Dallas County. It's actually, forgive my stupid co-host.
Yeah,
it is actually not Tarrant County. It is Dallas County.
Oh, he don't know nothing.
It's Dallas on their jersey. BYU is not a member, correct. OG Gary, they are not AAU.
Yeah, hey, guys. Hey, they're not AAU, okay? All right, good talk.
The BYU Utah face punching will never get old on this show. It just won't. And we can sit here and we can go round and round about it. But this game, you find me a game with more vitriol than BYU and Utah. And I've been around a lot of rivalries. And it's not Washington State, Washington. It's not USC, UCLA, which has zero heat. It's not Michigan, Ohio State. Utah has won the vast majority of these games in recent times, and yet they still want to stick each other at the line of scrimmage. They still pack shanks in their shoulder pads. Like it is nasty.
It's real.
And you look at a conversation about AAU, and it's like all of a sudden, BYU is just this crappy university who can't educate a toad and turn them into anything. They're just
because it's garbage.
BYU is an excellent university.